Well, shout out to a former enforcer of the NBA, never afraid to speak his mind. Charles Oakley was recently on a podcast, and he said a thing. And to me, it was a ridiculous thing, but it is something he said. Y'all know usually I put the quotes on the screen. This wasn't much to put on the screen. I'll just kind of brief it for you. So Charles Oakley was doing a podcast with two young black brothers, too. Y'all know I love to see that. And to make a long story less long, Charles Oakley was speaking on Giannis, and he said, first off, he said Giannis would have struggled in his era, right? He's like, yo, Giannis wouldn't be Euro stepping down the lane and all that stuff in my era. And he went on to take that comment a step further, and he said, actually, Giannis would be a sixth man if he played in the 90s. Now, I heard the comment. I wanted to make sure I watched the entire portion of that podcast to hear exactly what Oakley said in totality. And after hearing it, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I know Charles Oakley. First off, he's trying to sell a book. Go cop Charles Oakley's book. Clearly, he's trying to create some headlines. You know, I know Charles Oakley is going to take up for his era. Everybody's going to do that, right? One day down the line, I'm sure Giannis will be taking up for his era. That's what happens in NBA history or whatever sport. You take up for your era. You believe your era was better than the last era, and it'll be better than the next era, right? That's how it goes. My thing is the guys that some of these guys from the 90s and 80s decide to pick on. They go at the guys like LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo, literally the two best playing and two of the best, at least from their era. Like, why out of everybody you pick on Giannis, Charles Oakley? Let me make myself clear, and you probably should listen to Charles Oakley on basketball over me. Let me be clear about that, but I'm going to tell y'all how I feel. I believe Giannis Antetokounmpo would have been able to play in any era. All right, let me just say that. Giannis, and I don't know how much Charles Oakley knows about the Greek Freak, but I would love for Charles Oakley to watch this video and understand this part of it. Giannis ain't one of these American-born kids that come from this era, that come from middle-class America. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. I'm just saying we know there are a lot of guys that seemingly lack the heart, lack that dog that the guys from the 90s had. Now, I don't know how much Oak knows about Giannis, but this dude comes from barefoot nothing in Greece. Like, this dude is from nothing for real. He represents what Charles Oakley loved about the game of basketball. Literally putting the ball in his hands and figuring it out. Not as skilled coming into the league as some of his contemporaries, but Giannis Antetokounmpo was going to make a way for himself and his family in the NBA. And, you know, look at his brothers. No disrespect. The Nasses, these guys are nowhere near as talented as Giannis. And Kofi, they're nowhere near as talented as Giannis Antetokounmpo. So that you can literally just see how much Giannis has worked and how harder he's worked than his brothers and pretty much most of the people that came in the NBA with him. He's a two-time MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, a Finals MVP. Like, out of everybody you pick on Giannis and say that's the guy that wouldn't have worked in the 90s, okay, if Oak's stance is pretty much Giannis wouldn't be Euro stepping down the lane and somebody would have put a body on Giannis and stopped some of those hardline drives that the Greek Freak is so great at nowadays, I give you that. But when you say he'd be a sixth man, here's what I believe to be true about Giannis. If you look at the increases in the time frame that Giannis has increased in his game and just how quickly he's becoming one of the greatest players of all time. He's already top 25 on my list, by the way, and climbing. If you look at the rate in which the Greek Freak is getting better and better and better, I think it's safe. I feel comfortable saying no matter what era Giannis was in, the brother would figure it out. You want to know why? Because he wants it. He loves it. He embraces the challenge. He needs it. And he is chasing greatness. So that goes for the 90s, the 80s, up on to the 2020s. If you look at how Giannis, just a couple years ago, this dude wasn't just a average three-point shooter or an average free throw shooter. He was awful. You know, to take that into the NBA Finals in which he goes, 17 of 19 from the line in a closeout game 6 and drops 50 for a championship. You know, a guy that now can consistently knock down a three for the Milwaukee Bucks. If we're going to say Giannis would be one of the guys that wouldn't get it done in the 90s. I think there are other names that would be more suitable for versus a guy who literally, no matter what the situation has been thrown at him, he seems to get it done and get it done quickly, relatively speaking. I do believe Giannis, no disrespect to the Oak, all respect to the OG, I do believe Giannis Antetokounmpo, no matter the era, would have been able to figure it out. I'm not saying he would have taken championships from Mike in the 90s, but to say he would have been a sixth man, that's a little egregious. Let's not act like the 90s was just lynched with talented guys, a lot of hard-working, strong guys that were tough-minded. But Giannis fits a lot of those qualifications, and I do believe the brother would have figured it out.